We talk about how ocean populations have been affected. First, we'd like to give just a very quick definition of what a population is. It's a number of one species living in a defined area, and multiple populations make up communities, and marine communities are very important, as we'll demonstrate in the next few slides. So, Daniel.
It has been long known that ocean conditions such as temperature and current pattern are changing due to climate change, but also that those changes directly affect numbers and locations of different species of fish. Scientists have for the first time calculated the likely impact of climate changes on the distribution of more than 1,000 species of fish. The research was carried out by scientists at the University of East Anglia. And the disturbing results demonstrate for the first time. There will be a large-scale redistribution of species, the most moving towards the pole. Fish are likely to shift their distribution by 40 kilometers per decade. Developing countries in the tropics will suffer the biggest loss in catch, and while Nordic countries like Norway will gain with increased catch. In the North Sea, the northward shift of the Atlantic's cold may be reduced by 20% of its abundance, while European place may increase by 10%. In the USA, there may be 50% reduction in the number of some cold populations on the East Coast by 2050. Some species will face a high risk of extinction, and the invasion and local extinction of species may disrupt marine ecosystems and biodiversity.
Alright, so now what will this mean for us? Shifting ocean populations will have huge impacts on society. According to a 2006 study, the impacts of climate change in coastal marine systems, ocean ecosystems provide US $14 trillion worth of ecosystem goods and services per year. And as we've learned in previous talks, a lot of ecosystem goods and services are provided by biodiversity. For one, the fishing industry will suffer. Almudine kind of already outlined that, and that will particularly be affecting countries in the global south and the equatorial region. Tourism will also be impacted greatly. In the last talk, we heard about coral bleaching, and if all of the coral is bleached and dies, then you won't be having a tourist industry there, which in turn impacts the economy. And the loss of biodiversity that will result from climate change will lead to a decreased stability in general in ocean ecosystems, because it will be more rapidly shifting populations, and that leads to a decrease of the availability of certain ecosystem services. We'll look now at one specific case study, and it has implications far beyond the obvious. So we'll talk briefly about anchovies off the coast of Peru. Off the coast of Peru, anchovy populations rely heavily on a certain species of phytoplankton, and populations of this phytoplankton have declined because of climate change, and so therefore in turn the anchovies have declined. Because these anchovies make up such a large part of the ecosystem, they're considered a keystone species. The majority of tertiary consumers rely on them for their food source. So that will have a huge impact on the ecosystem. It'll also have an impact on the economic system, because fishing for these anchovies for human consumption is a major contributor to the economy of the area. And our agricultural framework will even be affected. It's time now to talk about Claudio's favorite topic of bird poo. And so the seabirds that excrete the guano, which we've learned is very important as a fertilizer, feed off of these anchovies as well. And guano is rich in nitrates and phosphorus, both of which are very valuable as fertilizers. And of course, if agriculture is impacted, this impacts social systems. So it gets very complex, the levels that can be affected just by a decrease in this phytoplankton.